providing an update on the MVHS capital improvement plan.
Good evening, board. The superintendent gave a pretty good introduction, so I'll cut it pretty short. We've been working away at this, trying to come up with a plan that will provide the upgrades to the Valley High School that it definitely needs, and bring it in at a price point that is going to be supportable by the taxpayers. We had this, it was going to be a two-part. Carrie Warms from Energy Efficiency Investments was going to present first, followed by Ann Ketterer from Novo Studios Architects. Carrie ran into a traffic accident on 95, and so she's held up by a little bit. So what I'd like to do is we're just going to kind of reverse the order a little bit. We'll jump right in with Ann, and then Carrie will close out the presentation toward the end. So this is Ann Ketterer from Novo Studios Architects.
Sorry, everybody, I'm going to stand at the front because I may point to some of the images that I've prepared for you. So if I'm not able to project my voice, you can hear, just let me know and I'll try harder. Okay, so Carrie will be here momentarily. She's pulling in. But we'll just start with the fun stuff, which is better anyway. Thank you, Ann. Okay. So my name is Ann Ketterer, and I'm an architect, and I'm the owner and founder of Novo Studio Architects. My partner, Steve Hepsch, could not be here tonight, but he sends you all his regards. He had a family circumstance come up. We are located in Manchester, New Hampshire, as well as Palisade, Maine, which is about 25 minutes from Walterboro, where our headquarters is. Before I go to the next slide. Over the last 6 months-ish, I've had the privilege of really getting to know your building, the Valley High School. As Brian noted, the purpose of this architectural investigation is solely focused on this building. I'm not looking at the other buildings. I'm just looking at the high school. Our process is designed so that my team and I get a real understanding of what's going on there, what works and what doesn't work. Our intention through this process is to understand how the building functions from a physical standpoint, how water and air moves through it, how its finishes are doing, how its windows and doors and exterior elevations are doing, and then also to move to the inside and understand how space is used. That process is called programming. And the intent of programming is space optimization. Because what we don't need to do is build you spaces that you don't need. And the only way to understand what you actually need is to get to know your building. So through the process of existing conditions analysis and space optimization, we can put the pieces together to say, okay, here's the circumstance of your current building, and here's what we think we need to do to make it better so that it'll serve your community for the next 30 years. And that's what we're doing right now. Once we get the understanding that I just described, then we start designing. We have to know what the problem is if we're going to solve it. So if you want to go to the next slide, this is everything we've been doing, and it's sort of color-coded according to those 5 categories. First, existing conditions analysis, then space optimization, then to the design options, and then last, almost last, but most importantly, cost estimating. And Carrie's here now. We're joined by Carrie Warms from EEI. Her team is going to be doing the cost estimating based on the design options that I'm currently putting together. So as I said, my work with the district goes back to the summer and in July when I first toured the building. And we very quickly in the fall, once school is back in session, we established weekly meetings so that we can make sure to stay on course so that we can do the work of understanding the existing building and understanding how the existing building serves students and staff. So to date, we have gone through the existing conditions analysis that included submitting a grant application for the, what's it called?
The School Revolving Renovation Fund.
School Revolving Renovation Funds, because we want to prove to the state of Maine that we deserve their money. So we did our level best and put together, I think, a very compelling application. Unfortunately, Carrie has told me that it's a very competitive year. And why is that?
So typically there's about $25 to $28 million in this fund for schools across the state. This year, there's only 15 million. So we're competing against about 85 to 95 applications across the state at a maximum of 2 million per application. So if they're going to max out applications, 15 million unfortunately doesn't go that far. And they're focusing on indoor air quality, but you are competing against life safety, immediate roof replacements, and there's a few different categories that you're competing against. And we across the board submitted ones, so hopefully we can get one, or probably at least one. I'd be hoping for. Two would be ideal, but with 15 million, you're spread a little thin.
Yeah, so it's a little disappointing this year, the way that's set up, but, I think that we had a very compelling application. And again, we were doing the work anyway, so we thought, well, of course, let's go to a little extra effort to apply and at least try to get this money from the state. Once we completed and turned that in, which happened at the end of October, we pivoted to the space optimization and programming study. And what that work involves is basically I came and I met with, on 3 or 4 occasions, I'd walk around the building, of course, but I met with every single high school department head. I also met with the counselors and I met with the principals. I met with the math department. I met with the athletic department. And the intent of this work is to create a catalog of space, all the space that you have that's existing. Then identify all the space that's existing that is dysfunctional. And what I mean by that is some space, it could be too small. Other spaces might be too big. Some spaces might be too far apart from another space that they're working in conjunction with every day. Those kinds of things are what I mean when I say dysfunctional. And then lastly, we identify any space that's missing. What this does is it actually gives us a mathematical number that says this is the amount of square footage we think that your school needs in order to achieve 21st century learning in an academic environment the way that your teachers want to teach your students. And then we can say, okay, well, how much square footage do we actually have in this school? So it's not quite that simple, but it's pretty close. And I think that gives you a good idea of the real practical and logical approach that we're taking to this design. So we met with the teachers, we met with the administrators, toured the buildings. I also met, as the superintendent noted, I had a great meeting with the superintendent a couple of weeks ago to kind of let him know where we're at. And then of course we started designing. And that's where we are. And so it's with this process that I'm going to start to show you our findings that led to the design. So we go to the next slide, and I promise I'll be less wordy going forward. This is everything we have. So our existing conditions analysis identified hazardous materials, safety and security concerns, as well as inadequate spaces within the building. Our space optimization study showed us which spaces are too big, which are too small, which are too far apart, etc. And then lastly, it gave us a real goal for pricing, which is, okay, we think we want to dive into only what we need to do, not what we want to do. And that's a huge distinction because this district has been through a process that didn't make that distinction. And now we are going very much out of our way and identifying project goals. And we can go to the next slide again, thank you. So that we are mindful and respectful of the district's money. So first, health and safety. The idea is to create spaces that are healthy and safe for both students and staff. This is what the community deserves and needs. So the existing conditions analysis showed us what the building needs, things like remediating the hazardous materials, addressing code compliance issues, updating the building systems so they function properly, addressing accessibility. Right now, we don't have adequate accessibility for the level a public school should provide, and then also providing a secure entry. Space optimization, the intent here is to address student needs so that we create a learning environment that's appropriate for how in the 21st century kids learn. We looked at creating a resource suite, centralizing a special education department. Right now, special education sort of has a leftover space. The rest of the departments are all together. So the math department's together, the English department is together, but the special education department is scattered. It's not very good for the teachers that want to be in better communication. And more importantly, it's not very good for the students that need to kind of travel all around the building. And it's kind of a big building. And the delivery of those educational needs would be made better if we had a centralized special education department. We're also looking at the science labs because they are very much out of date and aren't aligned with how we want to deliver science education in the year 2025. And we're looking at the student toilets. I think that you've heard a lot about those toilets, and maybe some of you have actually attended the school and know what I'm talking about, because I don't think that they've really changed since 1969 when the building was built. So their finishes are outdated. They're not handicap accessible, but more importantly, they're not safe and secure and supervisable, and it's inadequate for the maintenance staff as well as the student experience. There is a certain amount of illicit behavior, bullying, that is allowed to take place purely because the design of these gang toilets prevent any kind of supervision. And you don't want any supervision in a restroom that would violate someone's privacy. That's not what I'm talking about. But that you can design them in a way that's easier to maintain and that you make them an environment that's not scary for kids. And then, of course, the locker rooms. The locker rooms, also designed in the 1960s, was a time when you needed 12 showers per locker room. And weird gang showers in the boys' room. And that's not how students interact with locker rooms anymore. So we looked at, well, and they're cute. That's a massive waste of square footage. So we looked at, well, how can we optimize that and we have to renovate them anyway. How can we renovate them in a way that gives space to something we actually need and makes an environment that students will actually want to use? And then lastly, the project budget, and that's the third goal for this project, is being fiscally responsible. The project budget needs to be aligned with the expectations and ability of this community. We can't go out and propose frivolous square footage to the tune that it will bankrupt the community. We have to focus on the needs, not the wants. And so that's what we're proposing. Even though we're just in conceptual design, that is the mindset that we're in. And I wanted to share these three goals with you because I'm going to jump into the floor plans in a moment. So, Ian. Okay. Goal number 1, health and safety. We talked about the flooring. Everything you see in that lime green color, that flooring has asbestos in it, as well as asbestos mastic. That's a hazardous material. We need to rip it up and put down something safe. Number 2, the restrooms. So it's been identified to me that these restrooms are the most heavily used by the student body. And I don't know that we'll have the money to renovate every single restroom like you see over here, but we know that it's a priority to renovate these 3. This is the one by the library, and these are in the sort of like elbow of each academic wing. The locker rooms over here, this space. As I noted earlier, it's old, doesn't serve the student body, and we could probably, I know we can make better use of that space. The science labs, those are over here. And then lastly, the entry vestibule. Right now you have a sequence that is not considered secure by most school standards. Typically, when we enter an academic building, what we want to do is make ourselves known through a buzzer, have the administrator, secretary, whomever, buzz us into the vestibule. We sign in. I'm Ann, I'm the architect, I'm a guest. They know I'm there, and then they give me a pass to enter into the school. But I have to go through them to get there. I can't just walk in. That's not what you have right now, but that would be a goal of this project, is just by adding or moving a door, we could change that sequence to make it more secure for the students and the staff. Okay. Great. Okay, space optimization. So as I noted earlier, there were several areas where I think that we can make some pretty dramatic changes to the school that will allow us to use space better to the tune that we don't need to build new space. It's less expensive to make better use of the space we currently have than to build new space just because we didn't go to the trouble of studying the existing space. So when my team and I studied the existing space, what we found is the art room, they're nice. It used to be an auto shop. It was like a vocational program for cars. The art department is too big. We found that the area next to the art department it's sort of a smattering of different programs. There's some art, there's health, there's special education. It's unorganized, and it could be organized and set up in a way that is far better for the service of education. We also looked at the main health and nurse's office. Any program that interfaces with the public should be near the front entry. Because if you're a parent going to pick up your kid, you shouldn't be wandering through the school to get them. They should be right there. Similarly, if you're a parent and you're going to meet with a school administrator or a teacher, You shouldn't have to wander through the school to get to the conference room. You should be buzzed in through that secure entry that I spoke about, and then have direct access to a conference room and direct access to the nurses suite, direct access to the counselors. Anything that is public facing should be close to the front door. And what I found is when we take the nurse's office and we move that space over here, then now suddenly we have this space to do something else with. And it's that's what I mean by optimizing the space that you have. Sometimes if you just look critically at how space is used and reorganize it, you have more than you realize. And so then over here, what I'm calling the student resource department is exactly that. What I'm describing as a place where anything that's public facing would be centered over here towards the front door. Okay. All of this is going to cost money, and that's something that, as part of our delivery to you and to this committee, we will crunch the numbers. Carrie, this slide was intended for you to talk a little bit about EEI's process.
Yep.
For performance contracting and the design build model.
Yeah, so I'll kind of back it up since I missed the first few slides. It's coming in hot, but the process that we're gonna be doing is doing this through a performance contract to try and maximize how we can use these funds. And we'll be presenting a few different options, and that's what we're working on now. So our cost estimating team and Novo are working together pretty much weekly right now as we develop the scope to put in some budgets and then present here's 1 to 3 different options, not only for space optimization, for HVAC, for the overall project, and then here's different ways that we can either finance it or fund it. And that's how we'll kind of look at what makes the most sense around January. We'll have all those numbers put together for January with what the impact is to the district on the cost. Again, we're really trying to keep it as cost neutral, as beneficial to the district, where we're making sure everything's cost effective. We're bringing the school to where it should be without frills, but doing it in a way that also adds value. So we'll be looking at those numbers in January, once we have the costs on it. I think if you want to go back just to the beginning slide.
You want to go here?
Yeah, I'll talk just to because it kind of ties into this one.
Sorry, we're crowding.
That's okay, I'm good. Big space.
Yeah, so the main state revolving renovation funds, partly what we're going to bring in January is all the numbers that we're looking at for the high school project. And we really kind of have to wait until end of January, early February to see what we get from the main state revolving funds, because we want to capitalize on that program. The way that program works is a percentage is completely forgiven of a project, say up to 2 million, and then the remaining is paid back at 0% over the next 5 years. So we would want to utilize any funding that we get through that program first, and then scope out the project after that. What we're doing simultaneously is also what we're calling phase 3 development. That's a project that's focused on the district-wide ventilation and controls upgrades. Over the last 2 years, we've done mechanical upgrades, controls upgrades, roofing, windows, and we've chipped away at some of those immediate need items through district funding within the budget. We've kept it completely budget neutral through performance contracting, energy efficiency grants, and efficiency main money. So this phase 3 is focusing on the remaining items of that list outside of the high school scope. So it's ventilation in the basement of this building, it's controls throughout the district, it's converting oil to condensing propane boilers at about 3 schools that are still on oil, and adding ventilation to spaces in classrooms that don't, such as in the Friendship School. We need to replace the gymnasium as well as add ventilation to the basement. So phase 3 we're developing through, again, it's outside of the high school project. That's through energy savings, district funds that we've already planned on looking at so that it's completely cost neutral and doesn't impact the taxpayers. And part of these processes has been looking at how do we come up with scopes of work and ways to fund it that we can get work done without going to taxpayers. And then the high school project had to be separate because there's so much there that stands alone, that had to be a standalone project in comparison to everything else that we've been working on in the district. And so if you just want to go to the next slide, I'll keep it brief. I know it gets a lot. Having tonight that we have time for questions. This was that immediate list that we've been working off of. We're currently in the process of finalizing what is highlighted in yellow, which is what we call phase 2. It was the septic system at the high school, the mechanical systems at the high school, in the middle school, and controls throughout the district. And then what over here are the applications that we have submitted for the revolving renovation fund application. And what's not highlighted is what we're currently developing scopes of work for now, to be split between the high school project and a phase 3 project. All of it might not make it in, but we don't know that until we finalize all of the budgets and what comes with energy savings. What can we comprehensively group together to get grants through Efficiency Maine? And how does that look as a cash flow, which is planned for January. We find out the revolving renovation funds end of January, early February. So then by mid-February, we'll really be able to move items into where the bucket goes. That's the best fit. And so I think that kind of that's exactly what I was just saying, yeah, the timeline of what we plan on for finding out and then planning out the rest of the projects. So I know it was a lot of information.
Yeah.
Some of it might have been redundant from our past meetings on the phase 2, but it's good to get a recap and then also know what we're planning moving forward. So we want to make sure we save time for questions.
So I know that I talk a lot and it can be kind of complicated. So we thought we'd pause and be happy to answer any questions that you might have about the high
Any board
school,
member,
the work that we've done.
does any board member have any questions at this point? Go ahead, Tim.
My question is the timeline, knowing town meetings start. I know friendships usually takes place around St. Patrick's Day that week. Okay, so the sooner we get numbers, the easier it's going to be for us to be able to present it to the towns.
Yeah.
And I don't know if any other town has their town meeting earlier than that.
So that's something, the timeline, when you enter a project like this, you always start with the schedule. The last piece will be community engagement. And I've done a lot of projects like this, and the saying goes, those who don't know, vote no. So our intent is to create a project that is thoroughly vetted through the process that I talked about earlier. And then by the time we get to the town and communicating with them what we're doing and why we're doing it, we're able to answer all of their questions, and hopefully they can agree with us. We want to be as transparent as possible. So where we are in that process now and why we're working as hard and as fast as we are is my office has recently given a couple of design options to Carrie's office. They are crunching numbers. I'm meeting with them next week. And then in the new year, we will come back and present first to the facilities committee in mid-January, and then back to you, the full board, on the 5th of February. And at that meeting, we'll have much more information about the design and the cost information that you as a board really needs in order to decide how to move forward with this renovation project for your. So that point is very well taken.
Any other board member have a question at this moment? Okay.
Okay. Great. Well, thank you, everyone. It's really nice to meet you for the first time. You.
Brian knows where to find us if anyone asks
Yeah,
questions.
that's right.
Right.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much, Tom.